Hello, everyone. Happy Martin Luther King holiday to all of you, or if you're in Mississippi, happy Robert E. Lee Day, as it is also
That's a
known
thing.
around here. And welcome to today's episode of Always Right. Because I had the day off, we decided to record today rather than yesterday, and I think it's appropriate because of some of our topics that we're
Yeah,
going
and
to go over.
because we're recording today, everybody gets to see me in my civvies. Yes, I do not wear a shirt and tie everywhere I go. I often wear t-shirts and blue jeans and baseball hats and all that, but I typically don't have time on Sundays to change. So everybody gets to see Steven in the civvies today.
So we have a slew of topics to go over today. Many of them, in fact, most of them are incredibly stupid. I don't care in the least about a lot of this stuff, but it is in the social commentary, and just things have been kind of dumb this week. So the first thing we're going to talk about is gas stoves. Now, Stephen, you have a gas
Yeah.
stove, and I have a
Man,
question
I
for
love
you.
my gas stove. Go
Why
ahead.
do you hate the world?
I just feel like we as humans are here to destroy everything. And so
Yeah.
I do everything that I can. I drive a gas guzzling truck that gets like 12 miles to the gallon. I have a gas stove. And, I'll even burn leaves sometimes. Can you believe how terrible of a person I am?
Yeah. So there's a lot of conflicting information about this. What I think the current narrative is that nobody's going to come for your gas stoves. All of these crazy Republicans are just blowing things out of proportion, and they are using this as red meat for their base, and they're going after. They're just creating a culture war issue where there is none. Um, Well, the fact is, this is something that is has been floated by people in an official position to do things like this. Richard Trumka Jr., he's the son of a deceased union boss, actually, is the commissioner of the U.S. Consumer Protection and Safety Commission. I think that's part of the EPA. But he had a speech at a webinar back in December where this was a concern and mentioned banning gas stoves as a solution to the rising climate change concerns. If you have watched any of the show, you know me and Steven don't place a lot of stock in climate change fear porn. We have big problems with the way that those policies are represented and implemented. But this is a bureaucrat and he needs to some job security, so he has to come up with a way to make your life worse every now and then. And his latest one is we're going to get rid of gas stoves. Um,
And
I wish I
what's
had a gas
so
stove.
crazy? Just so you could
Yeah.
just point it out to
Well,
everybody, do
no,
you
I
have a
wish
gas
I had
stove
a
right
gas
now?
stove because they're just better. But I have an
Yeah,
electric
man, I
stove.
love my gas stove. I've had electric and I've had gas. I haven't had induction. I'm not rich enough for that yet. But I'll take gas over electric any day of the week. But what amazes me is it is in the news cycle because people are talking about it being a problem for climate change and general health because there are particulates that are put off whenever you use your gas stove. And I'm like, yo, in third world countries, people are burning their dung in order to stay warm, and you're worried about my natural gas stove? Or give me a break. Give me a
Yes, there.
break. It's not messing with the air quality in my home. It's not calling asthma in my home. Y'all are being ridiculous. And the study, have you seen the study that they point to
No,
point this fact out?
I know there's
So
a lot of problems
the
with it.
study that they point to, yeah, the study that they point to, it was in an enclosed environment. They enclosed the stove with like a tarp and
I
did
did
not
hear
put
that.
any ventilation. Yeah, that's
Right,
not a study. That methodology is so poor. It's ridiculous on all levels.
right.
And then,
The
for climate change, we need to stop burning gas for climate change. And nobody wants to point out that this past week, a study came out showing that the ozone layer is healing itself. Go figure, the Earth heals itself, and that it dropped all the anticipated rise in temperature by half a degree Celsius. Like, you don't hear about that in the news. Nobody's bringing that up. That we're actually not going to get as hot as everyone says we are. And at its peak, it was only 2 degrees Celsius. So it's all
Right.
just ridiculous. And the 2 degrees Celsius would save more lives than it would cost because more people die every year from cold than they do from heat. I mean, just everything is ridiculous.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I would recommend. So first, a comedian named Konstantin Kisin did a speech this past week or two to graduating class, and he addressed wokeism in particular, and talked a lot about how you're not going to solve climate change. It's impossible because the people like in the UK and in America, he's British, they
Mhm.
don't contribute to what you're saying the problem is. You have to convince poor people in India and China and Africa to make their lives worse in order to get to zero emissions or whatever it is, whatever pipe dream you want. So I would recommend people
Yeah.
go look up that video. It was phenomenal. Another thing I would recommend people
And how
check out, especially
humanitarian would that be of us?
right.
That would not be humanitarian of us at all.
Another thing I would recommend people check out is this tweet thread by Steve Everly. He did one. He broke down the gas stove issue. He mentioned the methodology in that study Stephen was talking about, where they enclosed
Yeah.
everything without ventilation.
It's stupid.
There's just more facts. This was my favorite. It says, moreover, research shows that what you cook accounts for the vast majority of the emissions from your stove. For example, olive oil, one of the most common cooking ingredients, generates 17 times more emissions than the stove that you're cooking on. So, I mean, it comes from like, and like, there's just so much about this that is so stupid. There's a reason vent bodies are so like industrially made, like they're well made because they have to fit certain standards and regulations. Like you're not
Mhm.
getting anything inside your house if you're properly ventilated, and your house, if you're in America, has to be properly ventilated. Like it's a requirement.
Yeah.
So
Like I
this
said,
is
we have
just
people in poor countries in Africa and Asia who are burning dung in order to stay warm, but yet we're gonna worry about the gas stoves in America.
right. So this is
So
just
stupid.
it's all ridiculous on its face, and it really frustrates me because I have to talk about this instead of things that are frankly quite more just a lot more important, like the Born Alive bill that was passed this past week in the House. The Republican-led House
Yeah.
passed a bill requiring hospitals and care centers to care for children that are born during a failed abortion.
Mhm.
One of the reasons that they throw stuff like this out so that we're distracted from the important stuff is because the people don't want you to promote the fact that every single Democrat in the House, except for two in Texas, one voted in favor and one um, did not vote at all. Um, Every
Abstain.
other
Voted
Democrat
president or
abstained. Yeah,
whatever it's called.
that was what I was. Yeah,
Yeah.
present. That's what he did. Every other Democrat voted to oppose this bill, saying that they do not think health caregivers should be required to care for a baby that is born during a botched abortion. This is a tweet from Matt Walsh. Democrats actively oppose any law guaranteeing medical treatment to infants born alive after a failed abortion. Nearly all of them think that such children should be left to die. This is their actual policy position. Never forget that.
Never forget what who was it? Ralph Northam, who made the claim in like 2019. He's the governor of Virginia that he believed that it would not be unreasonable, basically, that a woman have a baby and she wanted an abortion, but she had to have the baby, and then she could have the baby, and then her and her doctor could talk about what they're going to do. He was talking about infanticide. This is the definition of infanticide. This is a baby survives you trying to murder it, and you will not give it the care that it needs.
All right. And if you're a
It's
local listener,
this is some
which
Molech type stuff.
oh yeah, if you're a local listener, like I know pretty much all of you are, uh, be advised, be understand this includes your Democrat representative, Benny Thompson.
No, not Benny Thompson.
our viewership is primarily in the Delta and in Vicksburg, Mississippi, because that's where we're from, and that's where all friends and families are. Benny Thompson is the representative for all of you, because apparently Vicksburg is part of his district now.
It is.
So, you know, it frustrates me so much that it just seems so impossible to get a man like that out of office.
Well, whenever they cut these past congressional districts, his now
Yeah,
goes all the way down to Natchez, which basically secures him a seat until he retires. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's it and so yeah, your representatives are okay with killing a baby that was born alive. That is ridiculous. And you know what's even more ridiculous, Jeff? It's going to be dead on arrival when it arrives in the Senate.
yes, the
The
good
bill's going
bill
to be
that
DOA.
passed in the House is going to not pass the Senate. So, it's mm, makes me angry.
And
But
and
no,
I
we
I
got to
would
talk
put
about
money
gas
on it that
stoves
if
instead.
yeah, we gotta talk about gas stoves instead. And that's just trying to detract from what went on this past week. The House had a pretty good week. I was happy with what was done the first week in the House. I mean, it seemed like they were cooking with gas this week.
The House had a good week because they set some ground rules out the gate because of
Hmm.
those wonderful 20 dissidents that we were
Hmm.
supposed to hate 5 seconds ago, Dan Crenshaw. Um, so yeah, no, but no, we have to talk about the important stuff like gas stoves and Joe Biden's filing system.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and go into that. So this past week,
I'll
there
let
we go.
you fix
This
that.
past week, yeah, Joe Biden had that classified documents were discovered in Joe Biden's think tank, and then uh, after that, they were found next to his '67 Stingray Corvette in his garage, and we don't really know the contents of these things yet. So, do you want to go through just the basics of what we found out about Joe Biden this week?
Right. So, they've been discovered. Classified documents have been discovered in two places. Documents were first discovered in November, early November, at his office in D.C. that he used while
I'm
he was
sorry,
vice
what?
president.
When?
They were
When?
discovered in November. He took the
November.
document. He took the documents when he was vice president. So they've been there
So wait a
for
minute,
a
what?
decade. Well, not a decade, but still.
So they
Yeah.
discovered classified documents November, I believe the day was 2nd,
Yeah.
and we don't find out about it until January. I wonder what major event happened shortly after November 2nd. What
Yeah.
about, oh, midterm elections, and we're just finding out about this now?
Right, right. And after the whole hubbub with Trump's classified documents hoopla and all that, which was happening like around late 2022, it was like September or something like that, August. Um, yeah, Eh, and they found another batch of documents. More recently, it was this week in his home in Delaware. Now, at the time that these documents would have been acquired and placed at the home, he was renting out this house to Hunter Biden, who, as we all know, is an upstanding keeper of secrets, is super trustworthy when it comes to sensitive information. Doesn't
The
forget
perfect
anything
guy
anywhere.
if you need to have somebody watch your laptop while you run to the bathroom or something, perfect guy for
Right.
that.
So, and that's there's
From
been
my
a lot of
understanding,
drama.
he wasn't just renting it to Hunter. Hunter owned it in, like, 2018. Like, it was
He
his
was
house in,
renting
like,
it. Hunter was
2018.
paying him like 50,000. It was a money laundering scheme, is what it was. But like he was paying
Oh,
him like
no!
$50,000 a month for that house. Um, yeah. So let's. There has been an investigation launched by the DOJ under Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, and to investigate the extent of this breach in classified documentation. Um, we all know what's going to come of that. It's going to be nothing, but there is a purpose
Nothing.
here. They could just ignore all this and not do anything. They do it all the time. But the
Mhm.
administrative state, the managerial state, is sending the message to Joe Biden: "You're done. We're done. Like, you're not running again. We're about to get into presidential, campaigns. You need to announce that you are stepping aside. That way, people can get in the race, and we can get a better presidential candidate." That is what is currently happening, um, and it is obvious to anyone who has eyes, and a brain in their head. That's what they're doing. Um, they are using this as it's the same way they're trying to go after Trump, and it's because they don't want either of them involved. Um, so, I mean, as far as the crime itself, first of all, I think we probably classify things too often. Like, I think there's probably there's a low threshold for what gets quote unquote classified, I imagine.
Mhm.
And so there's probably an issue to look at there. Uh, but also, this is the least surprising thing in the world. The Biden family is a crime family.
Oh, man,
Like, it
they're
just
so
is.
corrupt. So
Like
unbelievably corrupt. Yeah. I
like they
mean, Hunter jet setted around the globe on Air Force Two, picking up bags of cash because his last name was Biden. That
right.
is a fact. That happened,
And that money goes to
but
Joe
nobody wants
Biden through things
Yeah,
like
it
him
goes to the
renting
big
out
guy.
his house for
Yeah,
$50,000 a month.
yeah. It goes
Like
to the
this,
big guy for sure.
yes. So again, least
Well, do you
surprising
wanna
thing
talk
in the
about
world.
why this is do you wanna talk about why this is the same and different in kind to Trump?
Yeah, I mean, it is the same
Alright, so
in
a
that
couple
it's
things.
it's pretty much this. Mhm.
They're both classified documents. There are
Right.
differences here as well. Uh, they were found in his house, in his garage, next to his classic car. As someone who has a classic car, which is nicer than Joe Biden's, in case you're wondering, and more rare than Joe Biden's. Um, if I had classified documents on my classic car in my garage, in my locked garage, as Joe Biden put it, do you think that I would be given any kind of leniency whatsoever? No. They
Right.
would put me under the jail. So Trump's documents were found in his closet, his locked closet in Mar-a-Lago. The reason it is different in the case of Donald Trump than it is Joe Biden is Donald Trump was president when he took those documents, not
Right.
vice president. And the president has plenary power to declassify anything he wants to, almost in like a Michael Scott fashion. Like, I declare bankruptcy. Like he could do the same thing with classified documents. Like I
Right.
declare declassification. Like the president can do that. Vice president
Right.
cannot. And in case you're wondering, neither can the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. So it is the same in the sense that it's classified documents. It is different in the sense of the position matters. What very well may be a crime for Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden cannot be a crime for Donald Trump because of who has the power of declassification.
Right. So, and then as I often do nowadays, is I often look at the way things should be, which is how conservatives like to think. Is like, oh, well, this is unfair. That we need to be consistent. We need to be intellectually honest, versus how they actually are, which is sort of
Yeah,
more how I'm viewing things nowadays. Yes, maybe we should be consistent across all the political spectrums, but we're not. We're not.
no, we're not.
Joe Biden's not going to face any sort of repercussions other than you don't get to be president after 2024. Like, that's the
Yeah,
message, and he needs to pick up on it.
that's it.
And well, Jill needs to pick up on it and translate it for him. Um,
Because he ain't picking up anything.
right. So that's what's going to happen. He's not. He's either going to make an attempt at running for a month and then graciously bow out, or he's not. He's going to decide not to run at all. Um,
But the fact of criminal investigation, nothing happened to Hillary. Nothing's going to happen to Trump. Nothing's going to happen to Joe. There's nothing criminal that is going to come of this situation.
No. And then, and you know what? You might as well get ready for it. It's gonna make you mad, but you might as well just accept it. Like, I'm talking to the audience. You might as well just accept it as a thing that will probably happen. It is very likely that your government tries to indict Trump for this and not Biden. Just
Oh, no
blatantly.
doubt.
Just
No
blatantly.
doubt.
There are
Yeah,
different sets of
'cause
rules, and they want you to understand that.
yeah, it's a power game, and Democrats know how to wield power. Republicans don't.
Yep.
They use their power when they have it. So, yeah, that's
Right.
exactly what's gonna
I
happen.
saw a great tweet.
But nothing.
I saw a great tweet.
What?
What did it say? It said, so the left always criticizes those to its right and bows to those to its left. The right always criticizes those to its right and bows to those on its left. Like that's yeah. Um,
Yeah, that's how it goes. So, I mean, yeah, classified documents were found. Nothing's gonna come of it. It's ridiculous. It's funny. The hypocrisy is funny, because everybody's been pulling up the what is it, 60 Minutes interview that Joe Biden did or whatever, where he was like, I just don't know. I don't know how I could be so careless. And there's been some interesting memes and some interesting moments. Peter Ducey going after the president, but there. Other than that, other than political theater, nothing's gonna happen.
right.
And I'm just not
As
interested
is
in
the case.
political theater.
Yeah. Yeah, like the gas stove thing might actually happen because the way these things work is they make that argument long enough and you just want them to shut up so you give them what they want.
Mhm,
So like a decade from now
mhm.
you might not have a gas stove anymore. But
Oh, I'll keep mine.
it,
I'll repair
what
it
it
fast
might
too, I don't
yeah,
care.
my advice for that is guys, if you don't have a gas stove, get one quick. That's my advice.
Go buy one.
Um yeah, go get one. All right. So it is Martin Luther King Day. It
It
is.
is.
We can. I saw actually a tweet thread about Robert E. Lee this past week, but we could talk about Robert E. Lee. He's a good man.
Well, so for
But
those who don't know, those who, are 2 viewers from outside of Mississippi who are unaware, Mississippi has celebrated the was it 2nd Monday, 3rd Monday of the month, um, as Robert E. Lee Day for 100 years, and that has been a continual holiday in Mississippi. You can call it racist, you can call it whatever you want to call it. That's just we're just telling you the way it is. Mississippi was celebrating that day as the birthday of Robert E. Lee before Martin Luther King Jr. was ever born. That was just something that's going on. And I remember when we were in school, our school calendars had this day off, and it said in memorial of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and General Robert E. Lee, and that's just the way we were raised to understand the way the holiday was celebrated. And I remember telling my wife that, and she thought I was joking. She really thought I was kidding. And then we went to the courthouse in Vicksburg, as he already said we were from Vicksburg. And we were at the courthouse, and they had a notice on the door. It's like, we're going to take Monday, January, whatever off in remembrance of those 2 men. And my wife was like, "You weren't joking." I was like, "No, I was dead serious. That's the way it's always been my whole life." But also,
yeah,
Vicksburg is a battle city. I mean, it was where the Battle of Vicksburg happened. The Civil War is something that is very much on the subconscious of Vicksburgers. The city of Vicksburg did not celebrate Independence Day until World War II, because for those of you who don't know your Civil War history, the siege of Vicksburg ended on July 4th. What was it, 1863? Somebody check that date for me. But it was July 4th when the siege of Vicksburg ended. So we did not celebrate as a city Independence Day until World War II.
right,
So that's a little interesting history about us.
right. And he mentions that Robert E. Lee Day has been a tradition for a century nearly. I used to
Yeah.
work for the state of Mississippi. If you know your holiday calendar, you can go look it up on the Secretary of State of Mississippi's website. Our holiday calendars, 3rd Monday in January. That is Martin Luther King Day and Robert E. Lee Day, officially. And we talk about how long we've celebrated Robert E. Lee Day. Martin Luther King Day is a relatively new holiday. It was instituted
Hmm.
by Reagan. Um,
Hmm. No, not
and
that evil, awful Republican president. No,
right when he didn't want to do it, and yeah, because of the fear that just we'd start having holidays for everything. Which, if
for
you know anything
everything.
about me,
Yeah,
you know
we
we
do.
do that, and I hate it. Um, but as I hate most things. um, but
Go imagine.
Boston decided to celebrate just Martin Luther King Day. They didn't want to talk about
Hmm.
Robert E. Lee, which
Well,
uh,
naturally, they were in the North. They were the winners. We were the losers.
Um, yeah. So they unveiled a statue that they have a sculpture that they have commissioned for Martin Luther King Day that costs $10 million. Now, Martin Luther King's relationship with Boston is that he graduated from Boston University.
Mhm.
Um, so it makes a little bit of actually I had to look that up. I didn't know what Martin Luther King had to do with
Yeah,
Boston, but
yeah.
that makes sense to me. All right, so we are going to look at a few different shots from a few different angles of this sculpture and see if we can see what all the hubbub is about. So this is the one you've probably seen,
It's not
and
the first one
I
I saw, but I've seen that one, yeah.
I gotta say, doesn't look good. This is the one that I've seen most prevalent. It makes more sense
Mm,
when you see it from other angles. Um,
okay.
yeah, not a fan. I think we can take this moment to talk about modern art sucks.
Modern art
Um,
sucks so bad.
I can't like we have a pretty prominent sculpture program at Delta State
Yeah.
in that these kids will come and they'll work on a sculpture for years and then they display them all across campus. And so we have got ugly looking statues all across campus. There's some very good ones. There are some very good
There
ones.
are some good well, and I think it needs to be set up front that you and I are not postmodernist. We do not believe that all art is equal. We believe there is higher art and there is stuff that people call art today.
Yeah. There
And
is an
that
objective
for
quality to
me, that
beauty.
transcends yeah, that transcends the visual arts, sculpture, that transcends to music, that
Right.
transcends to poetry, to all forms of art.
Yeah.
I am not a postmodernist. The fountain is not as good a sculpture as Michael's Da Vinci's Michael. Like it's not the same.
Right.
And so modern art sucks. And I'll tell a funny story about modern art. Keep going. Let's look at other things.
Okay. So I have to the way this works, I have to. All right. So that's from one angle. Here is a second angle where you can. All right, so now you see both. So this is supposed to be. All right,
Yeah,
there was a moment when
not bad.
Martin Luther King won the Nobel Peace Prize,
Hmm.
and he and his
He's
wife
hugging his wife.
embraced. This
Yeah,
sculpture is called
yeah, and that's what
Embrace.
the sculpture is called. Hmm.
Right. So this is him hugging his wife, and this you can sort of see more what it's supposed to be from this angle, and I get it.
Sure,
I do get it. And then I've got another one that's just that's the other side, where it's just basically
probably the
his hand,
first one
as
I
you can see.
saw. It was the unveiling. It was not good.
Yeah. So this is just this his hands. That's his side, and so you can see her
Oh,
fingers
that's
sort of at
not
the
the one I
top
saw.
there.
Yeah, it looks bad too.
Yeah. Yeah, I the one from the side certainly the sort of get more of what it's supposed to be, and I kind of get
I
what's going
haven't
on.
seen that one yet.
That's his hands.
That's a new angle. I hadn't seen that angle yet. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that's just so bad. And so the first angle I saw was actually over his right shoulder. It was filmed from over his right shoulder, and I
right.
didn't see the illicit things that people are saying it looks like. I just saw a bad sculpture. I saw the hands. I understood what it was supposed to be right when I saw it, and maybe because I am more familiar with modern art than your average person, I just don't think it's good. It's
No.
just it's not good in my opinion.
Yeah. So
If you
like if
want to put a
that's
bronze statue of the man up there, or if you want to put a bronze statue of he and his wife together,
right, that's
that's
what I was
fine.
saying. If
That's
that's the
but
moment
yeah,
you want to capture, just make a statue of of both of them in full
yeah,
human form, do embracing
yeah.
like um I just everybody's trying to be subtle, but it's not. It's just stupid. In
Mhm.
modern art, like you're trying to create hidden meaning where there is none.
Mhm.
And it's just all about looking deeper than you actually are as a person. And
So there's a
um
there's a story about a man who went to like the Met or whatever, the Metropolitan Museum for Modern Art in New York, and was walking around and he had his glasses on. He took his glasses off and he put them in the corner. and then he just stepped back and put his arms crossed and looked at his glasses. I don't mean like sunglasses, I mean like spectacles, and just looked at his
Right.
glasses. And before long, a group of people were around this and started looking at it and started commenting on it because they thought it was an exhibit. And they started talking about how this new exhibit was talking about how we need to look as a society through other people's lenses, and we have a very fractured society. And they just kept speculating about this man's glasses sitting in the corner. And when it got up into a fever pitch, he picked up his glasses and walked off because that's modern art.
Right.
It's ridiculous. Now, if you want to build a statue, that's fine. But I, Jeff, I was under the impression that we didn't make statues of people unless their past was 100% clean.
Yeah, so it's the squeaky clean rule. We live in a modern society, and we can't commemorate the sins of the past. So
Well,
Martin
trigger
Luther
warning
King,
for all of
Martin,
our
well,
listeners.
no, like Martin Luther King was a saint. He was the best person to have ever lived. You might think it's Jesus, but Jesus wasn't black. So Martin Luther King, he's tippy top. Malcolm
So
X may
this
be
is
better,
something
but
might be better. So this is something that's sure to get me canceled. The FBI, for those of you who don't know, they ran illegal wiretaps on Dr. King for a long time. Like, and this is common knowledge. They ran illegal wiretaps on the man. And in 20, oh, you have to check the date on me. In 2017, Trump declassified some documents concerning JFK's assassination, and in so doing, he declassified the documents of the FBI wiretapping, and they found devious behavior by
yeah,
Dr. Martin Luther King and his fellow Baptist pastor associates. Like, and for those of you who don't know, you can pull it up if you want to. I'm reading the Insider now. When I was pulling this up, I remember reading this when all this came to light, and it came in and out of the news cycle in like 2 days. And y'all, this is huge. But it came in and out of the news cycle in 2 days. When I was pulling up articles for this so that we would have something to reference, oddly enough, the only articles that were coming up were from the UK. I wonder why that was. I wonder why the UK was willing to say things that we weren't. So as you can see here, this is titled from the Insider. These FBI documents claim Martin Luther King Jr. laughed at his friend as his friend raped a woman. And what they have is they have wiretaps, audio recordings of this event. A historian and Martin Luther King Jr. biographer unearthed previously secret FBI documents that claim the civil rights leader laughed while his friend raped a woman at a hotel room in Washington, D.C. What that line leaves out is the fact that this historian is actually a Pulitzer Prize winning biographer. This is the person who won a Pulitzer Prize for the biography of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So this person is an expert on who this is. The claim is based on transcripts of audio recordings that FBI officials collected from an illegal surveillance campaign against King, which extended to recording his telephone conversations and bugging rooms he booked at hotels. The memo contains the allegations turned up in a tranche of documents related to the assassination of President JFK, many of which were declassified by Donald Trump in 2017, 2018. You can read the documents below. Y'all, what they have to say is quite startling. It seems to have very good evidence that this happened. This happened. As a matter of fact, this wasn't the only kind of activities that they found. In the same article at the bottom, they talk about how at least 12 individuals, nearly equally divided between men and women, including King, officers of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and others bearing the title of Reverend. That's a title that you will never hear Jeff nor I refer to someone as, participated in a sex orgy. Excessive consumption of alcohol and the use of vilest language imaginable served only as a backdrop to the acts of degeneracy and depravity, many of which were committed in a communal atmosphere with onlookers as entertained as the participants. Yeah, so if we're only putting up statues of people who had perfect lives, no one gets a statue. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't put up a statue of Martin Luther King Jr. What he did in the Civil Rights Act was fantastic, but I'm now using the rules of the left. No one gets a statue.
I disagree, but I Let me
You
elaborate.
disagree that he did fantastic things in the civil rights
uh,
movement? What? What?
the civil rights movement, I think the resulting Civil Rights Act has laid the foundation for all of the problems that we have in American society today. But
That's a different
um,
episode.
yeah, uh, yes, obviously he had some great idea. He was a very motivational speaker, and he caused a movement that culturally worked for the good.
Mhm.
Um, and but you're right. I mean, like I don't mind that there's statues of Martin Luther King. I we have important, great people who are not necessarily good people. And history needs to be remembered. And if that's how we want to do it, I mean, again, we're from Vicksburg. We got a lot of Confederate officers memorialized throughout our city. Um, I can't tell you who most of them are, but uh,
Well, the mall is named after General
yeah,
Pemberton, who was
right.
the
General
Confederate
Pemberton, who's
general
during the siege of Vicksburg.
who
Yep.
yeah. So, yeah, that's all throughout our history. But also, I mean, if you want to look at other people, look at Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill almost single-handedly saved Europe. He is the only reason that England didn't give up to Hitler. And the dude had all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
He was not a good person, but he was a great man. And
Right.
so when you're talking about building statues to people, you're often talking about building statues to great people who weren't good. It is easier to be a great person than it is to be a good person. That is
That is
something that
true.
I
Yeah.
firmly believe.
Right. Yeah. That's a mess. That's the lesson that sort of Ben Shapiro was talking about when George H.W. Bush died. George H.W. Bush was not a
Oh,
great
okay.
man, but he was a decent man.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, if we're going to hold people to dumb standards, then we need to hold it all the
Hold
way.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold everybody
Uh,
to dumb standards.
but I mean, it honestly, is it really a statue of Martin Luther King, or is it just an ugly turd in the middle of your city?
So
So
ugly. Like, you
it's
do better, Boston. Do better. I mean, Boston has such a rich history. The first city to have public music education. I mean, you're all about the arts. Do
right.
better. Come on,
But
son.
so now that we've outed ourselves as violent racists, because we don't like the new Martin Luther King statue, let's just continue down this rabbit hole because our old school that we love best is in the news, in the New York Times. What an honor!
In the
Delta
New
State
York Times.
Delta
So, for
State
those of you who
University.
don't know, Jeff and I are both alumni of Delta State University. We both received our undergrads from the university in Cleveland, Mississippi. It is a small regional Division II university that it started as a teachers college, and its primary purpose today should still be to educate teachers. Um, we are known for a plethora of things, most notably the fact that our unofficial mascot is the Fighting Okra. If you do not believe me, go to feartheokra.com and you can see videos of our unofficial mascot. Our official mascot is the Statesman. We've won several national championships in Division II, and we've actually won some national championships in Division I, which leads into this story. Go for it, Jeff.
Right. So we have a celebrity from our area, one of the first black inductee to what, the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, or is that what it was? It was
Okay,
something.
so Lucy Harris has a ton of different things accounted to her. She is the only woman to ever be drafted by an NBA team. She did not go to New Orleans and play. But she's the only woman ever to be drafted by an NBA team. She was the first woman to ever score a bucket in the Olympics. That team went on to win silver medal that year. And while she was at Delta State, she was a three-time national champion under head coach Margaret Wade. Speaking of statues, we have a statue of Miss Wade as you pass as you drive to our basketball coliseum, which is called Walter Sillars Coliseum. Keep going,
Right.
Jeff.
So Lucy Harris is a celebrity in our community, and because she is a black basketball player, um, and has made national headline, like she's obviously one of the more prominent people to come from our humble university. Um, there has been a push uh, in recent history to rename the Walter Sillars Coliseum after Lucy Harris. And
Okay.
this New York Times essay is all about that and how basically terrible and racist Delta State is for not having done it yet. Um,
So the university that is majority minority is terribly racist. Okay. Show your work.
well, okay, let me. We have a statue of Margaret Wade who may have won some championships, but she never won a championship without Lucy Harris. And you know
She
what?
never won a national championship without Lucy
You
Harris, but
know
okay.
what? She's white, so why a
Yeah.
statue of her and not a statue of Lucy? Walter Sillars, he was a legislator, and that's why they named it after him. But he was a racist legislator. He was pro segregation.
Yes, as most legislators were in Mississippi, but without that legislator, we wouldn't have the university at all. That's why the Coliseum is named after him because he is basically the reason that we have Delta State University. At the time, it was Delta State Teachers College. Keep going, show your work.
Well, just everybody in charge at Delta State is just a white, and if they're a white and they're in Mississippi, they must be racist.
Well, that is probably going to be the thesis statement in this article. Which, yes, all of the presidents of Delta State University have been white men. That is true.
And
Now,
and
that doesn't mean that
and
they were racist because many of them were very liberal and progressive in all things. So no, but I'm sure that's the conclusion that people want to draw.
yeah, so it's a pretty it's a pretty aggressive article. And it goes through the writer of this article, I think is the director or the producer
Of the film, yeah,
of okay, so last year a film came out. Was it
called
last year or
Queen
the
of
year?
Basketball.
Called The Queen of Basketball. It was about Lucy Harris, and it
Great,
won.
great short documentary. Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Right. And was it an Oscar that it won?
Something like that. Yeah, I want to say if you scroll down to the bottom of that article, they bring it up.
Yeah. So, it won awards. It was a great film, and shortly after shortly after it came out, Miss Lucy Harris passed
Oscar.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, she did.
Um,
Which was a sad day for those of
no, I
us
guess
who were
she
Delta
passed
State
away in
fans.
January, and the Oscars was in March. Okay, so the
Mhm.
Oscar came after, but the movie came out before she passed.
Yes.
Um, all right, so the call to rename the Coliseum has been even more aggressive since she passed away. Now, a couple of local politics, a little bit of local politics. Our previous president was Bill LaForge, and he was contacted by this person who wrote this article along with Lucy Harris's family. Lucy Harris's family has been the primary driver behind this
Mhm.
initiative, and the producer or director of the film contacted him as well, trying to get the Coliseum renamed, and being a politician more so than an administrator. Um, President LaForge gave him non-answers for a while, and unexpectedly was let go in the summer.
In
He,
June, yeah.
yeah. So President LaForge was not. If he had intended to get this done, he did not get it done in the time before he got canned.
Yeah.
There is a message from him that came after he was fired, talking about how he did intend to do it and that he hopes that it does get done. I knowing what we know of President LaForge, it's hard to really say if that's the case. It's not really important
Yeah.
either way. He certainly wants to come off like he wanted this to happen. So the and now he ends the article. They have offered to give the Oscar to the university to display at the Coliseum if we change the name. They and let's be honest. Stephen and I have no problems with this decision in general. I think it would be good for the university in that it would draw a crowd, like draw some sort of some additional tourism. Cleveland is trying
Hmm.
to up its tourism game. Um, so I certainly don't have a problem with that. And honestly, I just don't care about names, the names of things, other than it's
Yeah.
super annoying when they change them because I have to learn the new name. Um,
Yeah.
so we don't have any problems with this. I have a
I do
problem.
have I have a problem with the tone of the article. I have a problem with the
That's
fact
what I
that the
was going to
article
say. Yes.
is based solely on race, and it does not bring into the part to question the person's merit or accomplishments at all. They mention a couple times, and or he mentions, whoever wrote this article mentions a couple times in this article how she was looked over for the head coaching job at Delta State for a white man. Well, it clearly their issue is with him being white, not with the fact that he's a man, because Margaret Wade was a woman and she was head coach. So, brief history: Margaret Wade won 3 national championships at Delta State when she was coach. I'll talk about Lloyd Clark in a moment. Margaret Wade played at Delta State as a player, and while she was in school, they stopped the basketball program. It was something like basketball was too strenuous for the girls or something like that. And they had this big protest and like burned their jerseys and all this. And she was a part of that team. And then they reinstituted the basketball program. She was the head coach. And they won 3 national championships. And a lot of people go, "Oh, it's Division II." No, this was back in the days of AIAW. So it was a single division. You could call it Division I. I believe someone's going to have to fact check me, but I believe our national championships were won against LSU and Tennessee. So for all intents and purposes, it's their Division I national championships. As a matter of fact, the university with the most Division I sports championships in Mississippi is a Division II school, Delta State. All right. Well, after Margaret Wade, the next coach that they hire is Lloyd Clark. And so the article makes it out as this being a terrible choice. They chose him just because he was a white man, and he was a high school coach after all. Well, for the record, the only thing that Lucy Harris had done up to that point had been an assistant coach for Delta State. She had never head coached herself. And if anybody knows anything about coaching, they know that head coach experience, whether at high school or not, is still more valuable than assistant coach experience, because the responsibilities that you have as a head coach vastly outweigh the responsibilities as an assistant coach. Lloyd Clark was an assistant coach from our hometown, from Vicksburg. I believe he coached at Vicksburg and maybe Warren Central. He had compiled a fantastic record over 8 seasons of 245-42. So he won 245 games and only lost 42 games. On top of that, he led the Delta State women's basketball team to 3 more national championships in the late 80s and early 90s. He made the NCAA tournament 16 times. He made the Elite Eight, something like 11 of those 16 times. The man was not a slouch of a coach. He was the best option for the job. And it's clear that this person's upset that he got it because he was a white man, not because he was the best one for the job. I don't know how you can look at his accomplishments and say he shouldn't have gotten that job. And then the writer gets upset that they named the court after him. And I want to say 2015, they named it Lloyd Clark Arena or Lloyd Clark Court,
The
something like that.
hardwood floor, the court. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the man deserved it.
Yep.
He was a 6-time Coach of the Year. He went to the NCAA tournament. He went to the Elite Eight. He went to the Final Four. He won 3 national championships. Like, I'm not saying Lucy Harris wouldn't have been a good coach, but to castigate it as solely a race issue is disingenuous at best. It is not taking the people's merit into account, and it's a ridiculous ploy that you see people do on the left every day. And now that they've done it to the old school that I love best, it makes me mad. It pisses me off. It's ridiculous.
Right. There is like, just knowing the political climate at Delta State, just having been like, I worked at Delta State for a year, having been in it and understanding how things operate there. There is no one in that presidential cabinet who makes this decision that
Mm-mm.
thinks this is a bad idea, that is fighting
Yeah, yeah,
against it. No one is fighting against this. It is just your typical bureaucracy that comes with universities and government run organizations, and it moves slowly.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
have no problem renaming the Coliseum after Lucy Harris. I think she's deserved it. I think it would
right.
absolutely bring some notoriety to the hospital. But I take major issue with this article.
And he did
This
not
article wants to
mention,
make everything about race, and it's
right.
not.
And he did not mention what Ben Proudfoot, by the way, is the writer of this article. He is the director of the Queen of
Thank you.
Basketball. And he did not mention like anything that's happened since LaForge left.
Mhm.
This article caused our interim president to issue a statement because apparently he's been asked about it as well. And his response, which I think is the correct one, is this is not a decision for an interim president. You don't go
Sure.
around during the interim and renaming buildings. Um,
No.
and that just shows you what a stand-up guy Butch is, because if it was someone more crazy and radical, they would see no problems at all with this. But you know, Delta State is a decent place, there's with good-hearted people that are not being represented well in this article.
Yeah, and they
And
wanna castigate it as this evil racist place when Delta State is the most diverse public institution in the state of Mississippi. That's why I get so frustrated about this. Like, of all places, you're gonna call the most diverse university a racist
well,
place?
and
Like,
he
you know
uses that
nothing about these
he
people.
uses that as a cudgel against us. You're the most diverse university, yet you have all these things named after white people. Um, yeah, so
And so you
that's that
cannot honor
garbage
the people
article.
that founded it because they're not looking at the growth of the university. Yes, Delta State was a white-only university because it started in 1924, and everything was segregated, and I mean, all the universities were either black or white. So yeah, it was a white university, and so you're not going to give it credit for the progress that it's made along the way. Like that's so stupid.
Yeah.
Just so much stupid, so little time.
And honestly, let's be honest, the name change would probably be a good thing because nobody knows that the Coliseum is called Walter Siller's Coliseum. You know what we call it in town? The Coliseum.
The Coliseum, yeah, it's the only one in town. So yeah, we call it the
Like,
Coliseum.
it's just so much ado about nothing, and it will probably happen probably soon now. So good job with the article, I guess. And it's gonna be good. Like, I just don't we don't have to become outraged in the meantime. You know what I mean? So, I good job on the movie, Ben Proudfoot. Maybe, unclench a little bit, take a Valium or something, and chill out. So,
Well, speaking of wokeisms,
okay, so completely related to what we were talking about, but not at all. How do you feel about Scooby Doo, there, Steven?
dude, like that was my favorite cartoon as a child. Like my
So,
first cousin and I watched Scooby Doo all the time. We're only like
yeah,
13 months apart, and so we were best friends growing up. We watched Scooby Doo all the time. We still like call each other and randomly quote Scooby Doo, and like it even shows up in some of our mannerisms sometimes. We love Scooby Doo, and just so happened like we saw it on HBO Max or something. My wife and I did, and my son now loves Scooby Doo. He watches all the originals, like Scooby Doo, where are you? You know, Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo, and he'll go around going puppy power. Like we're big Scooby Doo fans.
yeah. So your Scooby Doo household, I was not. I didn't
Mm,
care for Scooby Doo. Just did I for whatever reason it didn't jive with me. Um, growing up, my brother loved it. My
mm,
brother absolutely loved it. So as is the case with everything from our childhood, they are taking these prized properties and repackaging. We've talked about this, and I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
yep.
They are repackaging them. They are re-releasing them with new content to bank off your nostalgia. So, in addition to releasing all of the old school Scooby-Doo cartoons on HBO Max has now come out with a streaming exclusive show called Velma. And it is not geared towards children. Do not watch this with your children. It is geared
Okay.
towards the adults who are nostalgic for um, Scooby Doo. Is my
Well, why?
understanding of it.
What was wrong with naming the show after the Great Dane? I mean, everybody
Well,
loves
yeah,
Velma.
yeah. So why Velma? Well, now Velma is the preferred mascot because she is more brown than she used to be,
Did they
and
make Velma a person of color?
well, why don't you take a look and see? Um,
Oh wow, yeah, no, she that is not the same. Okay,
and she's also gay now, gay, bisexual, something. I don't know. Like, that was an article that we didn't talk about a while back. You gotta, because she
okay.
you know, God, everybody's gay. Like you got to take somebody and make them gay. And I guess in that group, you had to take somebody and make them brown or black. So they just did it with the same character. Um, so the show Velma, I don't actually know if it's. I imagine there's some level where they want it to be geared towards children as well. But
Sure.
because they're naming it Velma, I'm sure they're playing up the gay and brown aspect. So that's why I don't recommend you watching it with your children. And then, if you needed any more convincing, let's roll this clip from the show and ask the very important question: who is this meant for?
Fred Jones did not kill those two girls. His whole life, Fred has
Oh, hold on. I'm trying to turn the
Dude,
volume up, but it's being stupid because
dude.
it's.
lift a finger to do anything. He's been so pampered, his body hasn't even felt the need to fully mature. I mean, Fred literally can't feed himself.
That's not true. No, you just cut the food and put it on the what's the dumb thing called? A dingle hopper.
Great. Show us.
What? Do I have to sit through this?
Cuddies. Mother, Cuddies.
Oh my God, he is just like a little boy. Exactly.
Fred Jones.
So, in this episode, this is the only Velma I have ever seen. This is all of it. In this episode, clearly, Fred has been framed or accused of murder for some reason. So that again, probably not a kid's show. And they have done that thing that they do where they have made Velma the titular. She's the titular character now because she's diverse. They have made her the genius, which Velma was always the smart one.
You're
Okay,
smart, yeah.
not
But so was
Fred
Fred.
was
Fred was
never
the
an
one who built the
idiot.
trap. No, Fred built the traps, and Velma did like all the sciencey stuff.
Right. Fred was never an idiot. And
No,
so the way and you'll, now that I'm telling you the pattern, you'll notice it everywhere. The woman becomes the undisputed genius. She has all of the answers. Nobody works together on anything. They all just do what she says. And any men in the group are now undisputed idiots. They are complete morons who have to be babied. Rings of Power did this very badly, from what I understand. This is the model now. And so I asked a question on Twitter: who is this for?
yeah.
Because this is garbage.
It's so tiresome. I'm so tired of this same act, this same show. Okay, first you're going to say that he couldn't kill somebody because he can't do anything. Who is going to bring a stake into a court? Like it's. I'm so
This is a
tired of
thing with
this.
Steven. I'm gonna ask you to get away from the realism thing. It is a cartoon still. Cartoons get to be unrealistic, but
But since when are they not a team? The whole
right,
thing about Mystery Incorporated is they're a team. Why would you
right,
throw your team member under the bus? So now you're teaching people how to be bad team members to point out the flaws of their teammates in front of
right.
everybody. Okay, say he is pampered, and certainly he's pampered in this situation because he's the white man, right? Say he is pampered. You wouldn't want to point that. You wouldn't want to point out his foibles of your teammate. You'd want to build up your teammate. I'm tired of it. It's just so tiresome.
Right.
So, as you know how Joshua told the people of Israel, we're about to pass over into the land of Canaan, and you can either serve the God of your fathers, you can serve the gods of the Canaanites, Perizzites, the Amorites, whatever. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. In
Right.
this situation, as for me and my house, we will watch the original Scooby Doo's from the late '60s and early '70s. That is how we're gonna roll.
Well, yeah, and this is I think there was some commentary about She-Hulk where they did this too. In order to prop up the female character, you have to bring down all of the male characters. They have to be destroyed. So that's modern writing for you. Find something
It's
better. Don't waste your time on something like Velma. And yeah, the message I like to promote to these companies is make Velma's numbers tank.
mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they keep track of these metrics, but watch more Scooby-Doo, less Velma. so
Well,
that they
we've been
can
watching
actually see
Scooby
what
Doo on
works.
Boomerang. We haven't been watching it on HBO Max
And if
anymore.
you
We
can do
started
that,
watching
even
it on
better.
Boomerang. Yeah, HBO. That is so sad. Like, why? What? That's
There is
just why.
nothing. There is nothing that they will not come for and destroy.
There's no redeemable quality in that scene. There's nothing redeemable about that scene whatsoever.
Yep. So,
Who watches that and goes, "That's so funny. White man doesn't know how to cut up steak." Like,
so that it's been a big week of news. Hopefully, we'll have fewer choices but more deeper topics to talk about. That's what I like to do. But
yes.
as long as things continue to be stupid, we will continue to cover them. And we thank you all for watching. And Steven, you want to say any words?
Well, yeah, I hope you have a great holiday with your family. If you have a parade or something, feel free to go out and spend some time with your family today. That'd be fantastic. We're enjoying our day off, our day with our family. We're enjoying. Some of us have picked up new hobbies, right, Jeff? And so,
Yeah.
hope y'all have a great week. I look forward to better stories this next week because this past week was a slow news week of very little,
Things
and
that
it's
didn't
one of
matter.
those things where you get tired of it a little bit. So let's hope for good things and not so many stupid things this next week.
All right. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time. Hey, you've just finished listening to an episode of Always Right. If you like what you heard and want to help support the channel, please be sure to like the video and follow us on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please consider rating the podcast 5 stars. And as always, please leave us a comment, whether hateful or glowing, as we appreciate the feedback. Tune in next week for another episode of Always Right with Jeff and Steven.